So, ladies and gentlemen, once again, welcome to this very special segment. I know there's a lot of doom and gloom out there. We are all here stuck in the, the lockdown. But hey, there's many things that can still be done. And let's, we thought. Asti and I, Dr. Asti, the chief economist from PRD the research team, thought that, okay, let's cheer people up. Let's do something slightly different. So we thought we'll do a report which is a good report. Otherwise in the news always you get all the bad things that people talk about. I said, why don't let's talk about some good things as well. So the ST winning the Olympics, isn't that wonderful?
Oh my goodness, Umesh. I think it's I think it's something that we've all been celebrating, and we're celebrating. I think we're going to be celebrating this for quite some time, especially now in Tokyo, that the Australian team and other teams around the world is winning medals and breaking records and things like that. And I know that a lot of people watch the Olympics while they're in lockdown, and that is their source of enjoyment and their source of something positive in their day. So the fact that Brisbane has won Olympics 2032, I think we're going to keep on seeing the congratulations and the positivity that comes with it.
That is wonderful news, and as you mentioned that there's many people watching that, following that. There's been Australia's been doing quite well in there as well, and I'm very proud of the girls and all the teams that have done well. And our very neighbouring island nation, Fiji, which is also battling the COVID-19, they've been doing quite well. India's done reasonably well as well. So Sydney Olympics was 2000 and 2032. 32 years after that date is another big event happening in Australia.
Yes, definitely. Actually, just to add to your medal tally, Indonesia, where I'm from, obviously, my origin country, we won gold medal for the first time 2 days ago with the mixed doubles in badminton. So badminton is our national sport. We've got 5 medals in the Olympics. 2 of them is from badminton and the rest is from heavy lifting. But we got our first gold the other day. So, it's even in a very much so COVID suffering country like Indonesia, it was a day of celebration and a day where everyone had a little bit of a break from COVID.
And that is wonderful news as well, and congratulations. And I do love badminton as well, so that's wonderful. Well, so with all that much that's happening, I know that Tokyo made some amazing arrangements. The opening ceremonies and all those things. Very unfortunate that the number of people could not be there. But what do? We need to adapt to the circumstances that are upon us. Well, coming back to Brisbane, and isn't that wonderful? So we had the Expo 88, which they reckon put Brisbane on the map. And then, of course, the G20 Brisbane Summit. So following on from there, now we're heading towards these Olympics.
Yeah, it's, look, whenever we want to have a look at how something, whether it's an event or whether it's a crisis or something like that, we always look to what has happened before. And for us to do this research to basically see how Brisbane Olympics 2032 is going to impact the property market, we look at, what other international event that Australia has held in the past. And Sydney Olympics 2000 is, a similar event to Olympics to 2032, obviously. So that's one sporting international event that we can compare. Whereas in Brisbane itself, we haven't held an international sporting event to that level. And so our comparison is Expo 1988 and as well G20 Summit in 2014, because I remember the slogan, Umesh. I remember the slogan when we were in 2014, 2015, and had the slogan because we hosted G20 Summit. It was Brisbane world-class city, we now have the infrastructure and the ability to host all of these delegates and important people from all around the G20 countries. And that really put a spot to Brisbane and what we can offer to the rest of the world.
Well, definitely, yes. And as you have mentioned that, the property prices, so what have been the predictions? What are we looking at moving forward?
Okay, so stay with me on this one. So what we've done is we know that the Olympics is not tomorrow. The Olympics is still 11 years away. So we looked for G20, for example, we looked at the median house price in Brisbane from 2003 to 2014, which is 11 years in between. So same like us now, we're 11 years away from Olympics 2032. And also for 2015, which is the year after the G20 summit. So that's a 12-year, sort of like price growth that we look at, and it's a 12-year calculation that we've looked at. So throughout the 12 years between 2003 and 2015, which is the year after G20 summit, Brisbane median house price grew by 112.7%, Umesh.
Wow.
Whereas the surrounding suburbs, because the G20 summit was held in South Bank, South Brisbane, around that area, and you've got all of the other suburbs around South Brisbane and around South Bank, and those surrounding suburbs, they grew by an average of 116%. And so, there is a lot that can go on. There is a lot of growth that can happen between now and 2033. And because of that, we've taken that approach of, looking at the data from 2003 to 2015 to reflect what happened in the Brisbane market over those years of 12 years.
So if you're looking at that cycle, we have been, Brisbane is been named as lagging behind Sydney and Melbourne. So, our median prices, getting up to that top mark. So where are we heading up to, and where are we now?
Okay, so for Brisbane Local Council area, so the whole of the Brisbane local government area, as of 30th of June 2021, our median house price is $810,000. So we have broken that $800,000 mark for the very first time. Now, if you read the research report, we did do a graph over the past 46 years. And so Brisbane median house price started at about $24,000 back in 1975, and it's gone up all the way to $800,000 now in 2021. And this is not for Greater Brisbane, which also includes Ipswich and Moreton Bay and everything. This is just the Brisbane local government area. So if you can imagine, Umesh, if we're at 800, just say 800,000 right now, and if we apply that 112% growth that was seen over the 12 years, so from 2003 to 2015, which is the year after G20, that takes us to about $1.7 million in 2033. And if we take a step back and, we just, we kind of know that property markets, we may not grow that high because the market can slow down a little bit, even if we just go at half strength. So not 112% growth, even if we just go at half strength at 56% growth, with the current median house price of $800,000, that already takes us to $1.2 million in median house price. So regardless of whether we go half strength or whether the same level of growth happened to Brisbane market that happened throughout G20, we're going to be over $1 million in median house price. So that's quite staggering. That's quite staggering figures, Umesh.
That is fabulous. Now that to me that's music to the ears, as they reckon. And who would have thought that Brisbane would have risen up to this, and getting the $1 million median price well ahead of its original predictions.
Oh, definitely. I mean, when Sydney Olympics 2000 happened back in 2000, obviously, it was held mostly in Newington and the surrounding suburbs of Newington. That was the location of the Sydney Olympic Park. And that particular area, so Newington and the surrounding area, median house prices grew by 13 to 14% within that 1 year. So between 2000 and 2001, and then it grew by about 30% between 2000 and 2022, and then it grew by another 30%, 2000 to 2003. And so the growth doesn't stop just the year after the Olympics was held. It carried on to the second and even the third year. And I did the calculations. If I want to be very, very mild in my prediction, Umesh, even just taking that growth of 13.4% after Sydney Olympics 2000 and applying it to the 800,000 median price, that takes us up to $970,000. And we're still 11 years away. And so regardless of how you calculate, it does take us closer and closer to that $1 million median house price.
That is, again, wonderful, wonderful news. Well, right now, looking at all that, so what about, all the infrastructure that's going to be put in? And of course, we'll have all those, sorry. We'll have all those athletes coming in. They'll need somewhere to stay as well. So any plans of all those infrastructure?
Oh, definitely. I mean, the wonderful thing about Olympics is that the government will be looking at upgrading and updating, all of the infrastructure that is needed. And we know that Olympics 2032 is not just limited to Brisbane. There is going to be some events being held in the Gold Coast. There's also going to be events held in the Sunshine Coast. And so the overall spend and kind of like the benefits of it, it's not just for Brisbane residents where infrastructure is going to be, we have to lift our game up, so to speak. We've got to lift our game to host the games. When it comes to infrastructure, it will be felt by those in the Gold Coast and those in the Sunshine Coast as well. And we all know that if there's a bigger infrastructure or improved infrastructure that allows for people to move around much quicker and much more efficient, that's where you will start to see the increase in demand for properties, whether it's houses or units, but definitely properties. And so, yeah, it's all going to work in itself, into the system and into how we will be benefiting from it, Umesh.
What does it mean for the investors, looking at Brisbane? So maybe the time to move would be now.
Someone was asking about it to me the other day. They said, so if I'm an investor, is now the time to come in? And, my answer at the moment is, look, if you look at the projection, if you look at the price projection, then we are potentially at our most affordable right now. We're still sheltered from international demand or international buyers. And if you look at Brisbane's vacancy rates, we are extremely low at the moment. It's at 1.3, 1.2%, which is one of the lowest vacancy rates that Brisbane has experienced over the past 11 years. So that means there's a lot of people out there begging for rental supply. So if you are an investor, then, I would say if you're financially able to, now is the time to enter the market for sure.
And that is quite a very, very correct assumption there. Even, 1 point something is what our agency is experiencing as well in the vacancy rate. So that is quite true. Yep. And of course, even even with low intake of international students, who used to rent a lot, even with the less number of international students coming at this time, even then the rental demand is so high. So imagine once things start opening up and there's more people coming in, the demand that would be there for rental ones, because not everyone will be able to shift to Brisbane, but there will be lots of jobs. People will come in and rent, and companies would pay very good money to rent good places.
Oh, definitely. I have heard so many times of people not being able to find a rental accommodation at the moment. And, many people don't know this. They think that rental demand only comes from international students. It doesn't. For current families, even families that is, living here in Brisbane, if their landlord have decided not to, extend the lease, if their landlord have decided that they're going to sell the property because the property market is hot at the moment, then that family is looking for another rental place. And so it's definitely not just international students that we need to cater for. It is local demand within Brisbane. There's a lot more people moving from Sydney and Melbourne at the moment, and those people obviously need rental accommodation as well. And so, I always like to sort of dispel these little myths that, that rental demand only comes from international students and international people. And yes, they do make a large portion of it in certain areas. In Brisbane, anywhere that is near Kelvin Grove because of QUT, Indooroopilly, St. Lucia, Toowong because of UQ, Brisbane CBD because of QUT, where there is those concentration of students. Those areas will definitely be a little bit more impacted. But in general, across Brisbane, there are families, there are local Brisbaneites who are struggling to find a rental accommodation at the moment. So, if I can be so bold, this will be the call for investors to, hey, please come in and supply our rental market, because vacancy rates is definitely very low. And if we look at the price projection because of Olympics, then we're definitely going to see an increase in prices.
Well, that is definitely a very, very good news that the rental demand is good, so the investors are getting good returns and good yield there as well. When we were following the charts, and sometimes you see we saw a drastic drop in Melbourne once the lockdowns and everything started there at that point in time, but still quite high. But looking at Brisbane, Brisbane has been doing quite well. If we'll also look at migration, there's a lot of people have been moving into the regional areas. I think in one of our shows we discussed that the movement into the regional areas because of the migration points. So people, and that put a little bit of pressure in the regional areas as well for rentals, because a lot of people who are moving there, to score points and whatever, didn't want to buy, but they had to have a place to live. So, they wanted to rent the places. So that was, again, putting a pressure on the regional areas there as well. So once again, it's been, this is a very, very good news. But what about moving forward? We're looking at about, 11 years, but action needs to be taken now.
Oh, definitely, because 11 years is just going to go really, really fast. We know that infrastructure projects take time. We know that building a new road or upgrading a stadium or creating a new precinct or anything like that is going to take time. So from a time perspective, now is the time for us to definitely create a strategy, and not only a strategy that works on paper, but a strategy that has been consulted by a wide range of key stakeholders, community leaders, people of different interests, and actually creating, a strategy, a plan that can be executed not only now, but has that long-lasting legacy. We know that the North Shore, Hamilton, is now a priority development area. We know that that's where the athletes village is going to be housed. So about 15,000 athletes is going to be located in the athlete village in North Shore, Hamilton. We do know that there is a plan once the games are finished that the village will then be it'll be repurposed basically, so that there's residential offering, there's aged care offering, student accommodation, build to rent, all of those different types of property stock. They are predicting that there's going to be about 1,600 construction jobs that will be created. There's going to be about $500 million in private investment that will be poured into the athletes village and turning it into all of those other accommodation and property types that I was talking about. So we know that all of this has been, solidified as a plan now. And it's a matter of making sure that the step-by-step strategy and that the execution plan is being executed the way that it originally has been, mandated and the way that it's originally been created. So it's definitely a chance for different levels of government, because I know that the federal government will be involved in this, the Queensland government will be involved in this. There's a new funding system now that many people might not know about. So the International Olympic Committee will actually be responsible for providing the half of the cost of the Olympics in terms of running the Olympics, which is a completely different funding model to past Olympics. So that should really help in alleviating the cost of the Olympics. Not many people know about this, and they think that the Olympics is going to be fully costed by taxpayers. But in actual fact, there's a new funding system now with the International Olympics Committee. So moving forward, it is really about creating that strategy, making sure it's consulted widely, it's communicated, that we can, as citizens, actually hold our government accountable and making sure that there is a legacy after Olympics.
Well, once again, very well said. And if you look at I was at the business breakfast with the treasurer, and some of the things that they were mentioning there was that in many Olympic cities, they ran that at a very great loss to that place.
Yes.
Because not always, but they want to turn that around here. And as you've mentioned, with that funding model, where federal, putting in towards the cost, is a great move. And I think this is one cause in which we have seen the three levels of government working together. And it was wonderful to see the Premier and our Lord Mayor all side by side, all cheering for the same cause and all supporting the same cause. So it's a good feel for, the people like us who are in the industry and who like to, work in with the government of the day. So, be it the city council or be it our state government, because, in the property scene, all those little policies and things do matter. So I think there will be a lot of, as you mentioned, infrastructure, so it might mean a little bit of discomfort for people traveling those routes while the work's being done. I know there's lots of plans for the Geba, so, right around here, there will be a little bit of traffic things, and there will be lots of jobs. People, I remember when you mentioned G20, someone came in to visit us all the way from Melbourne. Hey, what you doing here? And I said, I'm transporting some dignitaries. I said, what, has Brisbane run out of, drivers? How would you even know the streets here? So he was hired to, given a flight, he came here, accommodation and everything. He was transporting the dignitaries from their hotels to the venues. So, there's lots of jobs that would be there. So, Brisbane and Queensland will be the beneficiary, and Australia as whole, there'll be, good things happening. So, 10 years from now, as the Premier, the Treasurer said, 10 plus 1 plus 10 is what is looking. He said there will still be, it does not just die off straight after the Olympics. So there will be movement still after that.
Definitely.
The things that you've just mentioned about Hamilton, creating that village which can be reused. Otherwise, many places they have built infrastructure which after the event it becomes like a white elephant. Nothing can be done, or they're underutilized, or they are utilized for something which does not reflect the value, the cost that it has been injected into in getting those in place. So, well, once again, thank you so much for being on the show. And now, is there anything you'd like to add in conclusion?
I think we've summed up everything in terms of how this might impact the property prices. One of the things that I will say is that many people think that Olympics is just going to benefit Brisbane, and particularly just Brisbane alone, and that's not the case. One of the reasons why the three levels of government do work together is because even though the Games is located physically in Brisbane and Gold Coast and Sunshine Coast, it's Australia being the host. It is our name out there in the international sort of world, and being representatives and, showing this is what we can do. And with Olympics, because the events are being held in different places around Brisbane, it's not just in the one suburb. The impact of Olympics will be felt all throughout Brisbane, all throughout the different suburbs, all throughout the different suburbs in the Gold Coast and the Sunshine Coast as well. So, and I think that's the most important thing, because a lot of people think that it's just going to have a singular impact, but it's not. It's going to have a multiplier ripple effect throughout the whole of Southeast Queensland.
Definitely, it will have that ripple effect, we will be the epicenter, but there will be that ripple effect, so everyone will get that benefit out of it. It's wonderful to have this conversation, and I think we'll have some progressive reports moving in, and then we'll look at, okay, so what did we say and where are we now? What is it happening?
Definitely.
Yes. So once again, Asti, thank you so much for coming on to the show, and putting some good light and good story out there to all our people in lockdown at this time.
Yes, definitely.
Thank you.
Thank you. Stay safe. Bye.